This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Thursday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us. Coming up a little later on today's show, Thursday morning, that means a visit from John DeSilva from racingwithbruno.com. We'll get some of his thoughts on racing this afternoon, looking out at the weekend as well. We'll also get some of his thoughts on perhaps some of the racing over the past few days, the Southwest perhaps, and maybe we'll get some of his thoughts going forward on Fountain of Youth and the Risen Star. A little later on, Dave Rodman from Laurel Park will go over to the two stakes races they had there on Monday, the Maryland Media and the General George. We'll also talk about the rescheduled Fritchie and Campbell, get some of his thoughts on this afternoon's racing at Laurel as well. And then towards the end of our show, Nancy Uri Holthus from Oak Lawn Park, talk a little bit about the stakes they had there last weekend, Southwest, but also a nice performance by Don't Tell Sophia in the Bayakoa, and we'll get some of her thoughts for racing at Oak Lawn this afternoon as well. So a big show for Thursday is scheduled. Again, it's a nice weekend. Oh, and speaking of which, I'm about to talk a little bit about Gulfstream, but before I do that, let me give the important Today story on Gulfstream. The Rainbow Six, their carryover now is over $1 million. Again, the Rainbow Six down there is one of those jackpot type bets. The total pool pays off only if there's a single winning ticket. But once it gets to this kind of a pot, if there are multiple winning tickets, there's a consolation prize. And when you get up to 600, 700, and certainly over $1 million, which they are now, even the consolation pays pretty well. It's a 20-cent base wager, so even the little guys can get in with a decent ticket. I played a couple of times last weekend and had four for six one day, I think. But you can come up with some logical horses, and with the pool as big as it is, you'll get a decent little payoff. You can jump in for 20 cents. You can make it a very reasonably priced ticket and have a little fun with that. So again, the Rainbow Six at Gulfstream now over $1 million. Keep that in mind. And Gulfstream, I was going to touch on Saturday because, of course, it is that Risen Star card. There are plenty of good stakes races on the card, but the undercard really interesting as well. Did want to alert you, the fourth race at Gulfstream on Saturday. It's an optional claimer, 25 tags, non-winners are one other than the condition, notable because the return of Normandy Invasion. Again, Saturday, the fourth race at Gulfstream. Normandy Invasion for Chad Brown and Fox Hill Farm showed a lot of promise last year on the 3-year-old trail. Had broken the maiden in the second career start and then went on to run a close-up second behind Overanalyze in the Remsen back in 2012. Came back and ran a better than it sounds fifth. Fifth doesn't sound that good, but it was a better than it sounds fifth in the Risen Star, second behind Verrazano in the Wood Memorial, and then a decent fourth place finish in the Kentucky Derby last year behind Orb. Off since the Kentucky Derby, the return on Saturday of Normandy Invasion, fourth race at Gulfstream. But the race, I mean, certainly the feature race, obviously the Fountain of Youth will attract a lot of attention. And I just briefly touched on this yesterday with Jeremy Plonk. But keep your eyes also on that sixth race. There are certainly some Derby contenders. A contender or more than one contender will come out of this race. Sixth race at Gulfstream on Saturday. Optional claimer, 75 tags or non-winners who won the condition. But you have horses in here like Matterhorn from Todd Pletcher. Second career start after having broken the maiden in the debut, middle of November up at Aqueduct. This is a son of Tappet, again for Todd Pletcher. Also for Pletcher, Constitution, who ran very well to win the career debut right down at Gulfstream Park early in January. You also have Tonalist for Christophe Clement. The maiden breaker for that one was pretty impressive when the horse stretched out to 2 turns back on January 18th. And there's been a little bit of buzz about this guy, and also Mexicoma for Richard Matee and Team Valor. Last year, this horse debuted up at Saratoga on the turf. Didn't show much that day. And it has the look, and I don't know whether I've ever read any verification of this for Team Valor, but at the time, this horse came back at Delaware in September. So late July, runs 7th in the career debut at Saratoga, comes back in September at Delaware and breaks the maiden very convincingly. And it just made that career debut up at Saratoga look more like they wanted the 2 turns rather than the turf. And at that time of year, going to turf was the only way the 2-year-old was going to get the 2 turns. Then, as I say, lays up, 6 weeks or so and breaks the maiden going a mile down at Delaware. Ships out to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, runs 6th in the field of 13. But Mexicoma on the comeback now, the 3-year-old debut. That Delaware race just certainly raised some eyebrows, and I think that one will be interesting. So there's at least 3 or 4 or 5 in here that could be interesting, and a relatively full field in the 6th at Gulfstream. Again, it's only an optional claimer. Allowance non-winners are one other than. But I think you'll have 1 or more Derby contenders come out of this, or horses that will at least now move on to the Derby Trail with some conviction. So that 6th race, very interesting down at Gulfstream, as well as you have the Devona Dale coming up, Stop Charging Maria, Only for You, Aurelius Bell, yada yada, Canadian Turf with Ray Dillick, and of course also the Fountain of Youth, Commissioner, We Miss Artie, Medal Count, Wildcat Red, General A-Rod, Our Caravan, just top billing in there. Really a nice card all across the board down at Gulfstream on Saturday. Stakes race from this past weekend that I didn't mention, but I just wanted to toss it out there because this is a horse that certainly potentially hit folks' radar screen last year. Zewatt won the Lost in the Fog out at Golden Gate last, I think it was, this was the holiday card. Zewatt gets it done under Russell Bays as the 4-5 favorite. Just gets up in the shadow of the wire. Russell Bays and Jerry Hollendorfer. And I say this horse may have hit your radar last year because showed a little potential as a 3-year-old. Won the California Derby out at Golden Gate. Then 5th in the El Camino Real. But subsequently, you go later in the year. Won the Damascus in November at Santa Anita. Ran 3rd in the Malibu towards the end of last year. Last time, prior to the Lost in the Fog, was 4th in the Stroob. So it looked like they went for a little class relief up at Golden Gate. But Zewatt, again, a horse that last year made a little noise early on the 3-year-old trail, but a pretty solid stakes level performer for Jerry Hollendorfer. Got it done this past holiday weekend in little stake, $50,000 Lost in the Fog at Golden Gate. Little Olympic tie-in in horse racing over the past few days. They had interviewed Bodie Miller, and subsequently newspaper article came out noting Bodie Miller looking at his career and kind of the waning moments of his career perhaps, but he's saying he's still capable of skiing at a high level, and if everything stays the way it is, thinks he'll ski next year. However, beyond that, it's hard to tell. He says, when I'm done, I always enjoy skiing. I don't know if I'll find my way back to coaching or something. I'm going to coach horses, I think. That's right, Bodie Miller looking potentially, Olympian Bodie Miller, looking potentially to become a racehorse trainer in his next career. Certainly he has a tie with Bob Baffert. He's become friendly with Baffert over the past few years. Baffert named his son after Bodie Miller, in fact. Now, Bodie goes on to say he likes the racing game, very complex and exciting, social and beautiful. It's a really interesting business and lifestyle. I'd love to be a horse trainer sometime. Whether I can break into that business, I don't know. They are very stingy with their knowledge. Even guys like Bob, meaning Baffert, you can't get a word out of them, but I'm learning. So it's interesting. Olympian Bodie Miller, after his skiing days are done and he's looking at least at another season of skiing, could be turning his attention more to horse racing. And that'd be kind of fun to have him in the horse racing game, an Olympian on the backside. Interesting article of the Sydney Morning Herald within the past couple of days. And just interesting in that it's always interesting to me to kind of look at the global racing community and the similarities and the differences. And in Australia, some of the authorities in Queensland are looking to modify their approach to inquiries and objections to more closely mirror the U.S. model. Currently in Australia, if there's an inquiry and objection after the race, it becomes an extended process because they bring the owners and trainers into the mix. Here in the United States, of course, we're familiar with the fact that if there's an inquiry or objection, you'll see the jockeys go over to the phone, talk to the stewards, and then the stewards go to their videotape, and that's pretty much it. It's the little conversation with the jockeys, and then they look at the videotape. Well, there's been some pressure down in Australia from the betting agencies to shorten up the process, because we're in a day and age now where via the internet, certainly, you can go from one race to another pretty quickly, and so they're looking to get that churn and that turnover a little quickly and get that official to come up a lot sooner. And so the process down there, which involved, again, the owners and the trainers, just takes much longer than does our process here. So they're kind of considering down there in Australia changing things up and going closer to our system, where it's just get a little talk with the jockey. And as is noted in the article now, and as some of the proponents of this say, with the technology now of videotapes, this bringing in the whole team of folks to comment is kind of an anachronism. Really, you have the visual there that you can look at and make your decision on. So just kind of interesting to see the similarities and differences in different parts of the world. Do want to note also, if you're currently looking for a job, Keeneland Racecourse looking for betologists, and I'm guessing this isn't a very good paying job, but what the betologist is, as I get from their website and what is essentially the help wanted there, it is someone who goes around the track and helps folks understand how to read the program, how to walk up to a betting machine or a teller and make a bet. And I just bring it up because, hey, if somebody's floating around out there looking for a job, again, I'm not sure this is a very good paying job. And certainly my suggestion I'm about to make, it doesn't work if this turns out to be some kind of volunteer position, but the page that lays out what they're looking for doesn't give any kind of a salary. But you would think if you went out there for the short Keeneland meet, if it's any kind of paying job, it probably covers your expenses for going out there and enjoying 3 weeks of racing at Keeneland. So they do have a betologist help wanted, essentially, page at the Keeneland website. If you go to keeneland.com/betologist, it'll tell you a little bit more about that. And as I say, I think it's just somebody who walks around the racetrack on race days and, hey, let me help you read the program a little bit. Here's how you make your wager and that kind of thing. So Keeneland looking to add to their staff with those customer service positions. All right, we're going to head to our first break. As noted, when we come back, John DeSilva from RacingWithBruno.com. A little later on, Dave Rodman from Laurel, and we'll wind things up today. Nancy Uri Holthus from Oak Lawn Park. All of that right after this.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB Television Network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Shamrock Showdown on March 1st. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by John DeSilva from RacingWithBruno.com. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How's everything?
Very good. And obviously no racing in New York today. You're going to look out at a couple other tracks for us this afternoon. But for folks who are playing Aqueduct Friday and into the weekend, just give us a little preview of what the weather looks like down there.
Snow is melting big time.
Nice.
I mean, the sun is out. I mean, I'm looking outside my window right now, and I see a nice stream of water outside my house here, and it's definitely melting. And I think it's going to be affecting the track a little bit, where it'll be good, but it'll be like melting good from the snow that was on there before.
Yeah, we're at that time of year where track maintenance is tough, but it's been tough all winter long. But we're getting in that period where now, day to day, but certainly even day and night, you can get that freezing and thawing, which makes it even a little more difficult. So we'll keep our eyes on things as they shake out. And John, I said before the break, top of the show, I touted people. I wonder, do you jump into that Rainbow Six down at Gulfstream? Because I said, now that they're up with that $1 million carryover, even the consolation there, it's a 20-cent bet, and even the consolation can pay pretty well.
It definitely does, and to me, I mean, I do give it a shot every once in a while, but right now I'm going to wait till Saturday, because with the big fields and the quality fields they have down there, you need long shots if you want to win it all. But even if you get a decent price with the couple short horses, because of the big fields and all the money in there, you will get paid very well.
Yeah, even the consoles, when it gets up this high, is okay. And at the 20-cent bet, you can make a little reasonable ticket. So I've taken a few shots over the last few days, and I expect to take a little shot today as well. All right, let's look out. You're going to take a little look at Fairgrounds race and a couple of Oaklawn, so let's do that. And then I want to get some thoughts for you on the weekend as well. The Fairgrounds 8th today is a Louisiana-bred allowance event. Non-winners are one other than. They're going to go 5.5. What are your thoughts on the 8th at Fairgrounds?
Well, to me, I'm looking at a race where Marvin Lafitte, I think, is the best. I mean, this is a horse who came off the pace to finish second by neck last time out, making the first start since June, made a little bit of wide move that day. Aranya retains the mount here. Rimanya has been on the last 3 starts. And I just think this horse is better than the rest and should get the job done.
All right, so Marvin Lafitte, I kind of like that name. And let me just look up my Oaklawn races here. All right, we're going to look at the 4th at Oaklawn this afternoon. Oaklawn's race number 4 today, a claiming event, 17.5 tags to 20 tags. These are fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs. Oaklawn's 4th, your thoughts?
Very intriguing race. I like number 3, Fast Bobby J. This is a horse who won by 10 lengths last time out for $16,000. Claimed off that effort by Dave Vance, who's 2 for 4 off the claim. He had one nice long shot there with a nice ROI. But even though the horse did win in slop, the horse does have ability on the dirt. If you look 4 starts back in September, the horse was third, beaten half a length for 16, and was claimed by Asmussen from Joe Woodard that day, so the horse can run on the fast track. And even though the horse has never won on the fast track, he's 5 for 6. But I think today finds the right type of field and should get the job done.
Yeah, it's a nice, confident move up, but off of the last one probably is going to fit well with this bunch also. So Fast Bobby J, I like that one as well. 8th race this afternoon at Oaklawn is a optional claiming event. $75,000 tags. Non-winners are one other than the condition. These are 3-year-old fillies. They'll go a mile and 16.
I like number 3, Cheerful Contender. I mean, you look at what happened to Martha Washington. That was a troubled start for that horse. A few other horses had troubled starts that day. But I think if you look at what happened 2 starts back, the horse wider field at Woodbine going a mile and 16th. Horse has 2-turn experience now, wants to be on the lead. And this horse has the potential to be alone on the lead today. That's what I'm hoping for.
And I'll also add in, talked to Frank Miramati last week, and he noted, now that we're getting a little bit into the meat, the Mark Casse horses that are getting a race over the track the next time back, they seem to improve a little bit.
They definitely do, and he's got Not My Cousin Yuriko riding here, and like I said, he's getting used to that surface and that circuit as well, because if you notice, the Canadian jockeys, they seem to struggle a little bit, especially if they have that weight coming off the pace style. They have a tendency to wait too long, but at least if they're aggressive on the front end, they seem to handle that a little better.
So in the 8th at Oaklawn today, the number 3 Cheerful Contender. All right, John, speaking of Oaklawn, before we go out and look at some of the action for the weekend, let's go back to last weekend, the holiday weekend, and Oaklawn. Wondering if you had any thoughts on the Southwest.
A terrific race. I mean, I looked at Strong Mandate, and I was thinking, oh, okay, everybody's making a big deal of Strong Mandate. He's a great horse and all that stuff, but I don't know. I didn't like the way he was weaving in and out in the stretch, and yes, he might have been a short horse. And if you remember, Lucas had a couple of other horses in the past that did similar things, and they just didn't last. And to me, I'm not a big fan of Strong Mandate from this point on, because I think he's going to get overbet, and he has a lot to move up now. But Tabature, what can we say? He looked tremendous. He should improve off that race, but the only question you have to wonder, when he comes back in the Rebel, my God, this horse may not even be the 4th choice if all the horses supposed to be there do show up.
Yeah, it's getting to be that time of the year where things are shaking out. And in a couple of minutes, we'll talk about a couple of nice races coming up this weekend on the 3-year-old side. Before we do that, though, I just want to shift our attention to New York on Saturday. They got a couple of stakes races towards the end of the card, the rescheduled Stymie. We talked a little bit about that last week. And the redrawn Stymie doesn't look much different. Still looks like Percussion and Mail, the horses we talked about last week. But also on the schedule for Saturday, 4th race will be the Kings Point 4 State Breds. And this is kind of an interesting race, John, in that I think a couple of horses are going to take all the action. Just like Percussion and Mail in that Stymie, Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher. Well, in the Kings Point, also Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher. Going to take a look at the stretch run of the Who Dam while we talk about this. And the number 2, Zevo, is going to just get up by a head for Chad Brown, running a disappointing 5th or 6th even that day in the Who Dam was Commandante for Todd Pletcher. A little bit inexplicable. Had some trouble at the start, and I guess you'd have to blame that for the aberration, even though the horse did get up in the mix. But prior to that, Commandante was just running so well. So I think it's going to come down to these two again. And again, as we talk, we'll watch Zevo win the Who Dam. Number 7, Commandante, will disappoint, finishing 6th. But I think Saturday, these are the two that are still going to attract the attention.
And the key to the race might be Sinistra, because if Sinistra, who showed improved speed last time out, decides to push Commandante, that would set it up perfectly for Zevo. Now, Zevo might be the better horse overall, but if Commandante is left alone on lead, that horse is going to be very tough. So I'll be very curious to see if there's any type of pace pressure or not, but I do think in the end I would still go with Zevo.
Yeah, again, just off of the race we saw, it seems like this one maybe is in a little bit of the better form right now. But it's going to be, I think those two are going to make it a very interesting race. All right, let's get some opinions on the weekend and the big 3-year-old races. First up, let's look at Fairgrounds and the Risen Star. Mile and a 16th for $400,000, a Grade 2 event. And, you know, both of the fields, the Risen Star and the Holy Bull, very interesting. Albano, the sibling to Mark Valesky. Bondholder is scratched because the plane trip didn't go well for Bondholder, so Bondholder ends up out. Horse that I'm looking at again, and I've liked so far this year, Gold Hawk. I'm maybe going to draw a little bit of a line to the last one and hope for a rebound on Saturday for Gold Hawk. Opportunity, only a couple of career starts so far for Bob Baffert, but the maiden breaker last time attracted some attention. So Opportunity gets in there. Commanding Curve for our friends at West Point has been off since a maiden breaker at Churchill last November. And, of course, Vickers in trouble. Stuck outside, the scratch of Bondholder moves Vickers in trouble a little bit. But coming off the Lecomte win, that horse is certainly going to attract plenty of attention. What are your thoughts on the Risen Star?
Well, we haven't even mentioned the top Pletcher horse, Intense Holiday, who ran a good 3rd in the Holy Bull. So the Cairo's Prince, and now he's shipping in, and you get Mike Smith coming out from California to pick up the mount, which I think is a very interesting move. And that's the thing about Pletcher. He's got so many 3-year-olds, he has to split them off, and to me, this is a good move. Because with his running style coming from off the pace, with that long stretch at the fairgrounds, this is a horse who I think will like that racetrack and should improve, and also will help him get points where he's not going to interfere with the other major horse that Pletcher has right now.
And you have to think, given this field, that Intense Holiday will offer a little bit of value for a Pletcher horse as well.
No doubt about it, because, you know, people are going to be looking at Vickers in trouble off the nice victory in the comp last time out. They might look at a little bit of Albano to join the rail today and maybe improving off that performance. I mean, it's a shame about what happened with Bondholder, but these things happening. But Bob Baffert will always take money. And also, when Baffert ships, you have to pay attention as well.
Yeah, no question. All right, let's take a look over at Gulfstream on Saturday. And I mentioned not only is the Fountain of Youth going to attract some attention in the Devona Dale and whatnot, but they have that optional allowance earlier on the card, the 6th race, which I think contenders come out of. And then even earlier, the return of Normandy Invasion. So a really nice card. But the Fountain of Youth, Grade 2, going a mile and a 16th for $400,000. I mean, you go down this field, and this is really going to start to separate out and show the contenders and pretenders. Commissioner, We Miss Artie. Medal Count, who going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year had some kind of wise guy buzz about him, has come back now in the 4-year-old debut and won a turf optional claimer down at Gulfstream, so Medal Count could be a little bit interesting for Dale Romans. Wildcat Red off the Hutchison win. General A-Rod off the Gulfstream Park Derby win. Then you go further down. Our Caravan, who the past few months, Michael Dilger has attracted my attention. Now, threw in the dud and the Holy Bull, and maybe they're being a little bit too ambitious and they should ramp back and go to a non-winners of one other than. But that they didn't maybe attracts a little bit of attention. And then, of course, you go a little further outside, top billing for Shug McGahee. This field's loaded. What did you think?
It definitely is loaded, and people have to remember that this race is a mile 16th, so the stretch run is not as long as normally would be. It actually finishes at the 16th pole. So a horse like Top Billing joined from the outside, even though he did win in the mile and 16th last time out, he has to go around a lot more horses this time. That last year was just 7. So he's going to have his work cut out for him, and even though I do like him and he should move forward off that effort, I'm going to try to beat him this weekend, but the horse might have a little bit more tactical speed, a little bit closer to the pace, because I think Top Billing will be further back. To me, an intriguing horse is going to be CZ. Now, this is a horse who has been second in stakes in the last 2 starts, tries 2 turns in the route for the first time, has tactical speed. And I think this is a horse that can get first run on the leaders when they tire. And I don't think this horse is going to be a Derby horse, but he might be good enough to maybe upset on Saturday.
And I think given this field, you definitely will get a price on this one. But Stanley Gold, kind of crafty. He can sneak in these Derby Trail races. And yeah, this is an interesting horse. I'm just looking here. Hutchison went off at 6-1. I think you'll get even a little bit better than that given the complexion of this particular field, so that's a little bit interesting. And just going back to Fairgrounds and their undercard, what are you thinking of Ria Antonio in the Rachel Alexandra?
Well, I am very glad they're not running against the boys, because that horse is not good enough to run against the boys. I mean, they were very lucky to get that disqualification and to move up. I mean, they had to get the jockey change because Castellano couldn't commit, but hey, you couldn't blame him, because right now you're looking more for a Derby horse than the Oaks horse. But Talamo's very happy. The horse has been working very well. But again, this is the type of horse where you like to try to beat it first off the layoff, because we really don't know if she's really that good enough. Because remember, she won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly, but that was when every horse had no Lasix. So you have to wonder about did we see the true ability of those horses that day. So to me, she'll be a non-delay. I will definitely try to beat her.
And you know, you also talk about taking a shot against a horse like this for various reasons. And they've kind of come out and said that one of the reasons they weren't facing the boys was because of the weather down there, missing some training and whatnot. So that's another knock on the comeback. So, you know, a short enough price, this certainly is one. You know, if you're spreading in some horizontal bets, certainly you put that one in the mix. But I agree, probably worth taking a little bit of a shot against on the scenario on Saturday at a short price.
There's no doubt about it. And also one other thing, you had mentioned Mexicoma before, and I wanted to let you know that with that whole scenario about what Mexicoma was doing, after that Delaware race, that's when Team Valor bought Mexicoma.
Okay. Yeah, now that you mention it, I remember that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I think, and they weren't supposed to go to the Breeders' Cup at first, but the horse was training so good, they gave it a shot. So we really didn't get to see the true Mexicoma. The plan all along was a 3-year-old campaign, and I'll be very curious to see what Mexicoma does in that allowance race, which is very strong. I mean, I do like Wicked Strong, but unfortunately the horse, I think, was rushed and lost it in the paddock that day. And to me, there's two horses you need to watch in the paddock. That's going to be Wicked Strong and Normandy Invasion to see how they handle it. Because if they start acting up and they start to lose it, definitely go against both of them.
Yeah, and as you're talking about Mexico, it dawned on me, I was just going back and looking at the past performances now. Now that you bring it up, I remember that story. And broke the maiden for the aforementioned Michael Dilger. This was one of the horses that put him on my radar screen a little bit, and subsequently went to Team Valor and Rick Matee. All right, we will wrap things up now. John, as always, appreciate the visit. Good luck this afternoon. Enjoy the racing this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
You got it. Take care.
Don't forget, you can find the selections of John DeSilva each racing day at racingwithbruno.com. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. Stay tuned.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back. Happy to be joined now by Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. Good morning, Dave.
Hi, Seth. How are you?
Very good.
Unusual day here in Maryland. It's not snowing. It's not sleeting. It's not cloudy, and it's above freezing.
We like that. So it's kind of the grand slam there. Excellent. And again, it was a couple of weeks ago we put the jinx on Laurel when we talked about how lucky you were without cancellations, and subsequently strung a few together. But you weren't alone. I mentioned Dick Girardi had an article in the Racing Forum. There was also an article in the Blood Horse commenting in the past couple of days about the number of cancellations all over the place. Penn National, Charlestown, you guys are included. Parks has been hit with a number of different issues as well as the weather, but it's been tough for everybody this winter. But we did get back on track with you guys on Monday on the holiday card, and the stakes that were scheduled for the canceled Saturday last weekend are coming up this Saturday. We'll talk a little bit about all of that in a moment. Before we do that, though, let's get some of your thoughts on this afternoon's racing at Laurel, and we're going to kick things off. Take a look at race number 3, which is a maiden special event for 3-year-olds. They're going the 1-turn mile. What are you thinking in the third?
Alrighty, I went 8-4 in here. Used a Profluent on top of Tony Dutrow Barn off of a good race on the inner at Aqueduct. It was a very fast opening fraction there on January 27th. This is the 1-turn mile. So this colt by Purim, who is by Dynaformer, is Spinning World Mare. I'm kind of looking forward to maybe turf in the future, but certainly wants something beyond 5.5 or 6 furlongs. And in his debut here at Laurel, he did run against Pax Borbis. He's turned into a nice horse. Scotland, who as a maiden, 3rd in the Jerome, 3rd in the Withers. So extra distance is going to help him here. You might want to also look at the 4 Sparkling Jewel, Gary Capuano barn, on a roll this year at Laurel Park, in the money and with wins. And he's run against 2 toughies, Hot Air Skier, Prospector's Heart in his last 2. I think the race between those 2.
Hot Air Skier. That reminds me, what was the horse you had on Breeders' Cup weekend? Wasn't that an Air horse?
Air Wildcat Air?
Yeah, Air Wildcat. Yeah, the long shot you handed out on the show on the we still,
Hot Air Skier. Hot Air Skier went to New York to win a leap of stake in his neck.
We still remember, however, that you handed out the long shot. That is still sticking in our mind here on the show.
Well, we hope to have another one of those very soon.
6th race today at Laurel is a starter allowance at the 5 level, 4-year-olds and up. Again, they're going to go the 1-turn mile. What are your thoughts in race number 6? We do have a 8-5 morning line in here. Scott Lake and Trevor McCarthy with Blimey. Which way are you going to go?
I'm going to go to the old boy in here, Face the Fire from the Hugh McMahon barn. Good second and a mile to, a worthy winner. And he ran huge. Never Stopped Looking was the horse to beat. He ran huge at 17-1 last time out. The race kind of rubber stamped by the 5th place finisher in their Cheap Thunderello, I think it is, or Thunderbird. I can't read my own writing. Came back to run quite well at Parks in his next start. He's a 15-time winner here. Face the Fire.
Yeah, you got to like this. 83 career starts, 30 times in the exacta, and just could be going back to the comfort zone. Was it this starter 5 over at Mountaineer, 3 starts back in a close-up second, was in a starter 8 last time and was an okay second, so going for the 5 starter today. And they're usually salty little events, but guys like this, that's a pretty salty campaigner, as they say, with the number of starts and the number of times in the money. All right.
Yeah, well, Blimey's going to get a lot of play in here. And, the question is, can he go this far? He was second to Warren Thunder on a super, super speed favoring track last time. And, I think of him more as a 6 furlong type horse. I mean, I could be dead wrong on that, but hoping to Face the Fire instead of running with him can rate a little bit off the pace. He's been able to do that before.
Yeah, I mean, you look down the page, he's not a guy that tries a mile too often, at least going back to last springtime, and so it seems like the connections even seem to think he's more a sprint type at the the traditional sprint distances, 5, 6, 7 furlongs or whatnot, so the distance may be a little bit of a drawback for that one. All right, 8th race today, optional claimer, 32 tags, non-winners of 3 other than 4-year-olds and up. Again, the 1-turn mile.
Wow. It's interesting in here is Trevor McCarthy was named on 2 horses, Cougar Ridge and Super Knight, and I guess he's going to show some allegiance to the Trombetta barn here, which he always does. But Cougar Ridge, number 2, is the horse I'm going to pick in here. Picked up by Alex Cintron, who had a couple of winners back-to-back yesterday here at Laurel Park. Eddie Keneally, runner, didn't like maybe the inner or maybe the company in the evening attire last time in New York. He's never run here at Laurel before, but if he runs anything like he's done at the main track Aqueduct and at Churchill, I mean, he's going to be super tough. He beat Mr. Palmer, of course, who was a stakes winner here at Laurel recently, kind of coming back to form in New York. I mean, I think he's got it all over him with his best race in here, number 2, Cougar Ridge.
Yeah, the last just looks like kind of an aberration. I would almost draw a line through that because the first 2, when he made the move from turf to dirt, were very good. So that one's kind of interesting to me as well.
Keneally starting a horse in Maryland. I forgot to look up the stat on that. I'm going to do that before the handicapping show today. Very few. I mean, maybe a few at Pimlico for stakes, but I don't really remember too many at Laurel.
And that's always interesting. And that some of that we're going to see on the weekend with the reschedule. We talked a little bit last week about Wolfson coming up from Florida. That's always, and some of these trainers that just you watch the game enough, that becomes an angle in and of itself. Well, speaking of stakes, let's go back to the holiday on Monday and just do a little recap of those 2. Have some video here of the stretch runs. First up, we're going to watch the Maryland Racing Media $100,000 race, 4 fillies and mares. They're going to go 1 mile and an 1/8. And I like Candy, morning line favorite. She's going to get it done pretty convincingly as the $1.10 to the dollar favorite in here under Alex Cintron. And again, this was the morning line favorite. She absolutely lives up to it.
Yeah, I mean, she was just kind of tons the best in the field. I wouldn't let the margin of victory, thrill you too much. I think she's going to be a very useful horse. There were 3 Malibu Moons in this race, interestingly, in what, a 5-horse field, sired by Malibu Moons. This was one of them. This filly had shown an affinity for Laurel before the one-turn mile. Showed a hint that she'd like to stretch out in New York. Kind of maybe rallied a little too late last time out as a prep for this, or and I just think she was kind of the best in an okay field here in the Maryland racing media. I mean, she reminds me of a horse, I think, that won this race last year. I can't remember her. Moon Filly?
Right.
Or a couple. What's that?
Yeah, I think that's right. PH, right? PHILLY.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Moon Filly. She reminds me of this kind of horse. So she's just a nice horse. They can make a lot of money with her. I mean, she leveled off to a big win there, but kind of with her head kind of high in the air. But kudos to the connections there and getting that filly ready.
And maybe the more impressive performance a little later was in the General George Grade 3 event. $250,000 going 7 furlongs. And we're going to watch the stretch run. Number 7, Bandbox, is going to upset over the number 9, Tenango. Linda Rice's Palace comes in and goes off as the even money favorite and disappoints running 4th, but with a wide trip, maybe an excuse there. However, as I said, maybe more impressive because Bandbox gets it done by about 4 lengths, 13-1. The odds were certainly understandable. This horse came back from a very long layoff to put in a comeback effort on January 30th. Ran an okay third that day, but I think validated that 13-1 given the long layoff, and the comeback was just okay. But Bandbox wins, and I pulled up Beyer weekend performances for the show yesterday. And as far as the stakes performers, I think Bandbox was the only triple-digit Beyer figure of the weekend. We're going to watch him come under the wire with a 101 Beyer figure on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Hillwood Stable for having faith in this horse and letting Rodney Jenkins kind of, coast him along here. He had some promise. He was kind of on the Triple Crown trail as a 3-year-old, and Rodney Jenkins stated in the paddock he's kind of his own worst enemy. He likes to climb all over horses and get aggressive, and he hurt himself, and he injured himself. He had some time away, and he's run huge figures in the past. Will he come back and repeat this race again? I don't know. I think he kind of had a good setup in this race with the track condition the way it was. It was labeled fast, but there was still a lot of moisture in the track. And, Palace didn't show up at all, spinning his wheels. And here comes Bandbox, 7 or 8 wide, with the X-Man, resurgence in his career. This has to be a big booster for him. He's had a tough time the last few months, Xavier Perez, but this is a very, very nice horse. He's a good-looking horse, too, when you see him in the paddock and in the post parade as well. But he hadn't won in a long time, and that's why he was dismissed at big odds. So we'll see if he can come back and run another triple-digit Beyer, sprinting perhaps, and come back the horse they thought he used to be.
Yeah, as I say, the scenario, second off the long layoff, certainly validated the price, but boy, outran the price with that nice, as I say, triple-digit Beyer. All right, let's take a quick look out at the weekend, the rescheduled races. We talked a little bit about these races last week, but on the redraw, they've changed up the fields a little bit. Notable out of the Barbara Fritchie, we have lost a couple of horses that are based over at Parks that last week were entered, but now with their quarantine situation won't be making it over. Also lost some of the horses that were likely to take some action, like Bold Curlin and Indian Jones in the Campbell. But the Campbell will be up first, a 5-horse field. Behemoth, Managed Account, Concealed Identity, Mercenary coming off the nice win last time, certainly should attract some attention. What are your thoughts on the Campbell?
Well, it looks like Managed Account's going to be the one to beat now. The Bold Curlin, who was entered in last week's Campbell's, not showing up for some reason. So, he's the horse to beat. I believe I didn't see the morning line. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but they may have been toying with odds on this runner after his third-place finisher in his lone start here at Laurel behind Bold Curlin and the Native Dancer. The Gaudette Barnes kind of come back to win the Campbell back-to-back years. They won it with Concealed Identity on a muddy strip last year as kind of an upset, and again, a short field last year. He had that kind of sticky, muddy track that he likes, and guess what? He might get it again on Saturday afternoon because we're supposed to have a lot of rain here tomorrow morning, which is a non-racing day. And the track, as you know, has had its issues with snow and rain and sleet. And even yesterday, it was a very, very deep track. You notice the times were a little bit slow, and that might work in Concealed Identity's favor. And he was 18-1 against Managed Account last time out. Interesting long shot for a back-to-back win.
All right, and only got about 30 seconds left, but the rescheduled Barbara Fritchie, the horse I talked about last week, back in today. Again, things have juggled up. You don't have some of the horses that were there, but Centrique entered again, and as I mentioned earlier, anytime Marty Wolfson ships in, I think you have to look twice.
Yeah, well, I was looking forward to Winning Image, maybe running with La Verdad, but that's not going to happen with the quarantine at Parks. La Verdad now looking for the sixth straight victory. Shipping from New York, but does the word Palace ring a bell to you? It has kind of a similar pattern. Good 6 furlong races in New York, trying to stretch to 7. I think Centrique's in a much better spot now, and he's very rateable. He's got the inside post, but he did it last time out under J.J. Castellano. If Carrasco maybe going to try to do the same with him. I think she's the horse to beat now, Centrique, because of the 7 furlong distance, and she's just the now horse. Didn't like her last week, but now with the scratches, they're non-entrants, actually, in the Fritchie this week. I think she's in better shape.
Yeah, that's unfortunate about Winning Image because we also had the Tony Black story that we were looking forward to.
Right, exactly. I was looking forward to that.
We'll wait for another day. Dave, as always, we appreciate the visit. Good luck this afternoon and also on the weekend to you and everybody down at Laurel. Hopefully a nice stakes Saturday coming up. It looks like the weather's turning not only there but all over the place. So knock wood, we're moving in the right direction. Dave, thanks
By
again.
the way, our long shot's running a horse I've been talking about, Interchange, in the Risen Star. So
okay.
I remember I've been talking about that horse all along. He failed last time out at the fairgrounds in a prep, but interesting, they're running him back, in a tough spot tomorrow. So I'm going to put a couple of bucks on him.
All right, there we go. That could be our weekend long shot.
Yeah.
Dave, we appreciate the visit. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. We'll take our last break. When we come back, Nancy Yuri Holthus from Oaklawn. Stay tuned.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report. Weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Very happy to be joined now by Nancy Yuri Holthus from Oaklawn Park. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Very good. And how are you? And more importantly, how is the weather? It looked like watching the holiday card on Monday. The things may have turned down there at Oaklawn because it certainly looked like a nice day on Monday. What's it going to be like this afternoon?
Well, it was absolutely beautiful on Monday, like you said. We do have some pretty warm temperatures. It's probably around 65 right now, but there is a serious threat of weather coming in from between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., and we're expecting about 20-mile-an-hour winds for the entire card.
Okay, we'll have to keep our eyes on that. All right, we'll get a couple ideas from you from the card. And again, for folks who are watching the simulcast signal, you can get Nancy's thoughts for virtually all of the races down there as she's doing the simulcast signal from the paddock, and along Frank Miramati giving his selections as well. But we'll get a couple ideas for this afternoon today. And sixth race is a maiden special event. These are 3-year-olds. They're going to go a mile and a 16th. What were your thoughts in the sixth?
Well, you know what? I'm actually looking to the far outside with the 9 Indian Outlaw coming from the barn of Danny Pites. This 3-year-old colt ran a pretty good third in his debut last time out. He is definitely wanting to go a little bit farther as he is going to go the mile and a 16th today. You know, he did come out of his debut in very good fashion, and he's a type of horse that is actually aggressive in his training. They would like to see, you know, breaking from close to the inside post, but you kind of have to deal with the cards that you're dealt.
Yeah, and I love Indian Charlies early in the career. I think they tend to be precocious, and that first one looks like a good foundation to build off of. So that's a horse that interests me as well. And it seems like Channing Hill's having a pretty good meet.
He is definitely. I mean, he's won 2 stakes on Don't Tell Sophia, and he's really making a name for himself. I think Marriage and Expecting a Baby has done him well.
And you know, another guy I've noticed over the past week and a half or so, David Mello.
You know what? I'm so ecstatic that you brought him up. I mean, he actually broke the record at Prairie Meadows last summer for the amount of wins. And usually, you know, he's kind of quiet here at this meet as he regroups, you know, so to speak, to go to Iowa. But I'm so happy to see that, you know, people are really seeing this kid's talent. And he's really going to make a name for himself. He, I believe, is at third leading rider right now, which is his best Oaklawn ever.
Yeah, he caught my attention, as I say, the last week and a half or so. All right, let's get one more idea for today, and then we'll talk a little bit about the nice holiday weekend of racing you had last week. The 7th today, allowance non-winners are one other than. These are fillies and mares 4-year-olds and up. They will go 3/4 of a mile. Your thoughts in the 7th?
Well, there's kind of 2 standout fillies for me in here, actually mares. The number 3, Livy McKenzie, coming in from the barn of Ron Moquette, shows an extreme amount of speed, and I know that the connections are really looking for a big race. She's a super classy mare by Macho Uno. And also the number 6, Lady Diva Gaga, from the barn of Phil Sims, who is also the conditioner of Don't Tell Sophia. Something about the fillies and mares when he brings them to Hot Springs, they really tend to blossom. I'm going to throw out her last race when she ran 6th in the American Beauty. She faced some really tough fillies. Apropos is now 2 for 2, the winner in the American Beauty. So I'm kind of looking at an exacta in that particular race.
This is a salty little allowance for Thursday afternoon. Nice stakes quality performers. All right, let's get some of your thoughts on this past weekend. First up, over the week, we've watched a couple of times the replay of the Southwest, and everybody is pretty much impressed with the top 2. There were horses who came in with a little bit of buzz, Tapiture and Strong Mandate, and I think they validated their 2-year-old seasons on the 3-year-old comebacks. So those were 2 horses that I thought very interesting, as I say, validated. I was a little disappointed with Paganal. I was really disappointed with Louis Flower because that Springboard Mile has been so productive over the past couple of seasons. So there were some disappointments, but I think the top 2 certainly legitimate now going forward.
Absolutely. You know, I know Steve was very pleased with Tapiture's performance, and Wayne Lucas was very pleased with Strong Mandate as well. I spoke to also the connections of Ride on Curlin, who finished 3rd in there, and he actually missed 2 works going into the Southwest, and his connections were hoping for maybe a 5th place effort. So to see him run 3rd, you know, just behind Tapiture and Strong Mandate really does speak a lot for this, and they are just bearing down for the Rebel. And I do know right now that you know, you did see a lot of horses coming in out of the Smarty Jones, but Right on Curlin on target for the Southwest, as is, I believe, Tanzanite Cat.
Yeah, and Honor Code looking for the next race in the series potentially. So we've certainly got a salty bunch of 3-year-olds on the 3-year-old trail at Oaklawn, and Tapiture very impressive, and it caught my attention this weekend. It caught my attention really down at Churchill. Now a stakes win over the track already, but the 3-year-old debut validated that. All right, let's go back to a couple other races earlier in the weekend. I just wanted to touch on the Essex with you for a minute, because certainly it was a nice win for Right to Vote. But I'm curious, why didn't Drogue show up in there?
Well, you know, I know that they had missed, you know, some solid works, in prep for the Essex. And these smaller barns really kind of have to be a little bit more conservative, so to speak. So I think that was, probably the same excuse for Cyber Secret, but definitely looking forward to seeing Drogue, further as the meet progresses.
Because he was so impressive in that last win, I was very surprised. But again, not to take anything away, Right to Vote, nice win there in the Essex. But I wanted to take a look at the stretch run. Going to pull up the King Cotton also on Saturday, $100,000 purse. We're going to watch the number 9 Apprehender win. And this one is notable for a couple of reasons. A, Chris Richard gets this one ready off an April layoff. So this was a pretty good performance. A nice win at 8-1. Beats the favored entry. Alsvid and Black Bear, the entry as even money, runs second and third. But again, off the long layoff, Apprehender pretty impressive. And again, mention that because as we're watching the stretch run on board, the aforementioned David Mello.
Absolutely, and I know Chris Richard and David Mello kind of teaming up, and Chris was very vocal going into the King Cotton that he really may have preferred to point to an allowance race later on in the week, but kind of had a little bit of fear that that race wouldn't go. That's why he put Apprehender in the King Cotton. So I think he might have been fooling us just a little bit, but a very impressive performance, especially off such a lengthy layoff.
And I got to touch on one more from the weekend. Going back to Sunday, the Bayakoa. I really like Don't Tell Sophia, and she's certainly a little bit of a horse for a course. She was right on exactly this same path last year, won the Pippin, followed up in the Bayakoa, and then ran very well in the Azeri and the Apple Blossom, second and third. But again, she's on the same path this year, and we're going to watch the stretch run to Sunday's Bayakoa. Don't Tell Sophia. 2-5 favorite. She validates it, winning nicely, continuing again, as I say, the same pattern she was on last year. And on board on Sunday, again, the aforementioned Channing Hill.
Absolutely. I mean, when are we going to get to the bottom of this filly? I mean, she put on an absolute clinic. I don't remember in the past seeing her that far behind. There was a little bit concern when I was watching it with some other folks, and when she's really way far back there. But I tell you what, right before you knew it, she was making that, putting her head in front at the stretch, and just is so impressive. I actually had dinner with Phil Simms after the Don't Tell Sophia's victory with a group of people, and they were just still ecstatic for the win. And I know he was super, happy to share that with his two sons, who actually came in from Kentucky and have been here every time Don't Tell Sophia has won. So we got to make sure that they keep coming in for the Azeri and the Apple Blossom.
Yeah, that come from behind victory. Maybe she'd been watching the Fox broadcast last week and saw Groupie Doll, her sister in arms, perhaps. All right.
Absolutely.
Just before we let you go, I do want to touch on, you have some stakes action coming up on Saturday, the Spring Fever $100,000 purse. There is a couple of horses in here that caught my attention. The David Vance runner, Soft Whisper, who seemed to freak a little bit on the comeback off a layoff, a better part of a couple of months, but seemed to appreciate the first start over the Oaklawn surface. So maybe a budding horse for a course, but also Beat the Blues. Off the long layoff, maybe a little bit of a dud last time, but certainly the way she ran last year, I think if she bounces back, now having a little bit of fitness, Beat the Blues is interesting. What were your thoughts on the Spring Fever?
Well, you know what? Brad Cox is having a phenomenal meeting right now as he's going to send out Ms. Anna Destiny in the Spring Fever. And she has either been first or third in the last 4 stakes that she has competed in. And she faced a really tough filly last time in the American Beauty by the name of Apropos, who just kind of schooled everybody else in the race. But, I'm kind of thinking maybe a little bit Ms. Anna Destiny to score the upset here.
All right. Yeah. Well, as you say, if you're riding a hot set of connections, that's certainly not anything to laugh at, because when they get hot, they get hot. There's no question about that. All right. Nancy, certainly appreciate the visit. Got to wrap things up. But, again, good luck to you this afternoon, and out to the Oaklawn folks on the weekend as well. Again, hopefully the weather is starting to turn here east of the Mississippi, both north and south, and we can now look to good racing for the remainder of the seasons. Certainly I enjoy Oaklawn. I find a lot of value down there, so I'm glad you're back on the racing calendar. We'll kick things back in this afternoon. Again, thanks for the visit, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much.
Nancy Uri-Holthus from Oaklawn Park. A little earlier, it was Dave Rodman from Laurel. We kicked things off with John DeSilva from RacingWithBruno.com. That wraps things up for Racing Across America for this Thursday morning. We'll be back to wrap up the week tomorrow. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little earlier, was the Handicappers Report. Jeff Carl and I took a look at the Florida racing for this afternoon. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas. So cash some tickets this afternoon, have some fun. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.